To welcome back to So Bad It's Good, presented by Betches Media. Today we have a returning guest. I talked to him I think over a year ago and I had the best time, and he's kind of a big shot, so I was like, I don't know if he'll ever actually come back to the show, but luckily he is back here today. If you don't know him, you got to know him, you got to follow him. His name is Antphrodite, and this is how he describes himself on YouTube. He's a sassy psychic mixing tarot with modern internet culture. He really does some of the best pop culture readings that I've ever seen. And also, just straight up, I was watching him pull cards for August for horoscope predictions, and I was blown away when it came to mine, Taurus. You can find out everything you need to know about him at antphrodite.com, and I'm going to put that in the show notes as well. But please welcome back Antphrodite. Welcome back.
Hi, thank you for having me on again. I'm so flattered, and I will come back whenever you want.
Oh my God. Well, okay, I'll see you next week. No,
Okay.
Really, you are so damn good at what you do. And I was watching a bunch of your videos today, and you really get sucked in. You have this charisma on top of mixing these pop culture things that we all love. And I was even loving in the horoscope predictions, you did how could you do this to me ? Reference Countess Luann. And I was like, yeah, he loves the Housewives. When we were talking about it last time, you have a good depth of knowledge on the Housewives.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching Housewives since it started. So
I know.
I think that's like, I think it's sometimes a plus, sometimes a minus, because I know a lot of fans haven't. And so sometimes their perception of people is different than mine because I've seen the growth period. So
yeah. Well, which I want to get into Teresa and Louie and Jersey of it all. But just to remind people that might not have heard that first episode or might not be familiar with you, how did you get into this? Because it is such nobody can plan to do this. Nobody can really go like, yeah, I want to build a huge YouTube following over this ability that I have to read tarot cards and psychic predictions. How did this all happen for you?
You know, it's honestly kind of like a stroke of luck, or I guess destiny. I kind of just started a live stream once, and someone noticed the cards in the background and they wanted a reading. And I was like, I mean, okay, like I've done it for like myself and the people around me, like since I was like 12. I was like, but I didn't really think anyone would think anything of it. And I swear to God, it just like took off after that. Like people would just like, oh, my friend got a reading from you. Like I want a reading. And then I kind of had to figure out a business model. Then I had to figure out how to promote that. Nobody was really doing pop culture readings at the time. And I, wanted to be a journalist when I was younger. So I was always fascinated by pop culture. So I kind of just married the two, and this was born. It was all an accident.
Yeah. I mean, that's really kind of even how this started. It was all an accident. But I will say, like 4 years into this, sometimes I'm like, well, this is feeling a little tired, this part of it, or this is feeling a little. Do you ever get that with what you do? Of like, sometimes I don't want to be doing all of these readings. I don't want to be predicting about pop culture. Do you ever get tired of it?
I mean, sometimes I do get burnt out, but I think here's the thing. I'm super grateful for what I have and I love what I do. And a lot of people would kill to be in my position. So I have a lot of discipline because I feel like I'm so insanely lucky to be in the position that I'm in. And it's just so rare that I don't want to lose it. So I try not to take it for granted. And I try to think about the fact that this might be the first time someone has seen me or the first time they've ever gotten to experience it. And I want them to have the perfect experience.
That is the perfect answer. Like coming from a place of being grateful is always going to be so much stronger. And you're right, though. Like that's the thing, is that you never know who's listening for the first time and who might hear something that you say and it makes their day better, or it gives them a little bit of a different thing to focus on. And I thought, so just guys, he does this monthly video on pulling cards for horoscopes for the month. And I was watching his August one today, and I'm a Taurus. We got to Taurus. And you scared the shit out of me, Antphrodite, because you guys, he pulled these cards and one was said, I have a snake in my midst. There is somebody that I'm close with that is throwing me under the bus and that it's going to make me look bad, which I think that's happened a lot lately. But there's somebody and that I need to get rid of this person, but everything's going to be okay. But this person also has a lot of pull. You scared the crap out of me.
I mean, look, when I see things like this, it's just for you to be prepared. Like, just moving accordingly. Because I think a lot of times people sometimes second guess their own intuition. And so for me, it's like if you feel some type of way about someone, you're not really sure if you should trust them, and that was in the horoscope, just make sure you protect yourself. Because it's not
Yeah.
necessarily like be terrified and don't do anything, but it's like, okay, I don't really trust this person. I'm not going to give them everything I normally would give someone. So it's more along the lines of just like a check and a balance, but there's also good in there. I always say what to avoid, but then I also have the
Yeah.
good news and the
Oh, you had,
positive
I mean,
aspects. Yeah.
tons of good news. Like business is on point, money is on point. So it was tons of good news. I was like, oh my God, my circle's so small already. Who do I have to cut out now? I was like, I got really nervous, but it was so good. And like, he does it for every month, folks. And you can even go to your specific month. YouTube, by the way, I was explaining it to my dad this morning because he has no real concept of YouTube. And it really is the most watched platform. Like, I mean, it beats TV regularly, and people don't even realize there's a good portion of the population at a certain age that don't even realize how much YouTube is such a force now in pop culture and media.
Oh yeah. I mean, I don't know anybody that watches TV. Like,
Yes,
I really don't. I really don't. Like they watch streaming, like they'll watch it days later on streaming, but actual like live TV, I don't know anybody that watches it anymore.
Yeah. I mean, my niece and nephew are the same way. I feel like I never thought I would feel like a fuddy duddy by watching television. I always thought television was like the rebellious thing. Like I'm watching TV, and now it's like you got to be watching on your laptop or your phone, and you can't be on it. You can't have cable. You're a nerd if you have cable. You got to be on a streaming platform. Anyways, that's insane.
Well, one note to that, I will say,
Yeah.
I do think that they can enhance the TV experience. I always think of the Barbenheimer moment where like people weren't going to the movies and like everyone was like complaining, but then Barbie and Oppenheimer came out and it brought people to it. And I think what they need to do is create a unique experience. Well, the reason why people went to see Barbie is because it had an aesthetic. Like you could see what they were wearing, and like if you're wearing this, you're for Oppenheimer, you're wearing that for Barbie, and everyone in the audience was able to interact and like whatever. If you are able to create something like that, a moment, people will watch live TV. You just have to give them a reason to.
Yeah, I mean, it really is interesting. Barbenheimer is such a perfect example, but like when you make something unique, people do tend to show up still, no matter what. Now, speaking of Barbenheimer, I watched another video that you put out recently, and I think Deadpool and Wolverine and It Ends With Us, they were trying to make some kind of distorted mutant baby Barbenheimer. And in some ways, they really succeeded because both of those movies are very successful at the box office. But It Ends With Us, I watched an entire video of you talking about the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni situation. And that movie is still like over $200 million, very good. But there's all of this behind the scenes stuff that is taking the focus out of a movie that's based around DV. What were the things that you kind of discovered in doing this video? Because I thought you said some things that I thought were like so on point.
Well, first of all, I got a lot of backlash for that video because they said they said it was too kind. They wanted me to like, which is so funny because I literally feel like I wasn't. I'm like, I kind of roasted Blake, but
you did.
Like,
I mean, yeah, but I mean,
they wanted me to go harder. Yeah, they wanted me to go harder. I'm like, okay, well, that's not the person I am. But here's the thing. I think that when it came down to it, I think they both had different perspectives of what they wanted to do. I just think that perhaps sometimes, here's the thing. Certain people are non-confrontational. I feel like Blake Lively's non-confrontational. And when you're non-confrontational, a lot of times you look sneaky because you have other people doing things or you're saying one thing and doing another. And I feel like that's kind of what the core of their issue was. And I also think a part of it was like, oh, we need to create controversy to get this movie out there, because I think nobody would have cared if they didn't have some sort of buzz. And I think maybe they just took it too far.
Yeah, I mean, it really did feel like they let the horses full steam out ahead on something that, because I didn't even realize the book and the movie were about DV. I was, like I wasn't targeted towards me, and then all of a sudden this complete. But the point, like you just said, was so interesting about somebody being very creative and wanting to do things in a non-confrontational way, but also be artistic and put their own thoughts and vision forward. But when you're non-confrontational, you can sometimes make things so much worse. And I thought that was something that I hadn't really thought about in terms of Blake Lively. Of it's not her being completely for lack of a better word, a complete monster bitch. It's like she was trying to put her thoughts and her artistic spin and did it potentially in the wrong way. And that made a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I'm a very confrontational person, and I've dealt with a lot of non-confrontational people, and I always have this issue. So it's very easy for me to spot in others because it's like, to me, it's like you look sneaky, you look suspicious,
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
That's me. I'm the worst. I am non-confrontational, and I will tell you, it is the worst trait that I have besides not showering every day. It is the worst trait I have. No, it's like, really, I will, like, everything comes down to, it's like not me trying to be sneaky. It's me trying to not hurt anybody's feelings and not like, and I'll tell you, it has made things worse every time.
Yeah.
Every time. And it's one of those, I don't know where that necessarily comes from, but you are so damn right. And that's why it really, like, I related to that so much. But it is interesting in terms of what you do and what I do. And you mentioned people wanted you to go harder. People wanted you to hate a little bit more. I see that happening online. And even with the stuff we talk about, it's not even like it's not any polite conversation anymore. It's like, let's destroy.
Oh yeah, I vehemently despise it. I've been completely anti-cancel culture since the beginning. I've been doing this for 7 years. And what bothers me about that is that, like, my job is literally about figuring out what's going on and why someone did something. That is literally the core of tarot reading and their intentions. And I think sometimes people can do bad things. That doesn't necessarily mean that that was their intention. And I think that's where forgiveness comes into play. And so for me, when you watch me, if you're looking for someone to bash on someone, watch someone else. There's plenty of other commentary people. If you're looking for someone to figure out why someone did something and what was the root of the issue or the cause, that's what you come to me for. And also, what's going to happen next, because I do predict the future. But
I mean, that's why I think it works.
Me. Yeah, and it frustrates. Go ahead.
It frustrates you. No, I'm just saying we need you. We need that counterbalance, because I think everything, and especially when you hate, it gets so many more clicks and it gets so many more downloads. I've always been people have tried to not trap me, but people have tried to encourage me to really get into the mess. Like, get into the mess, get into the fights, get in. And I don't have the constitution for it, but I see that it's successful. But that's why I love people like you, that, like, there are still, it's very successful, and you're providing a real service and information.
Thank you. Yeah, my integrity is very important to me, and that's something I feel like defines me as a creator. And also, I don't care enough. Like, I don't care enough about the situation to, like, insult someone or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, if someone wanted to hire me to talk a bunch of shit, then I'll do that. But other than that, no, I'm good. Like, I'm not going to do all that. I just don't care enough. And honestly, at the end of the day, when I've read so many celebrities, and it's just a bunch of ego, and it's just like, a recipe for disaster. Well, so whatever, they're all the same.
The Blake Lively stuff, people have pushed back on me because I'm like, well, let's try to understand that a lot of men have this same kind of artistic sensibility, and we celebrate that. And people are like, oh, you're being too easy on Blake. And I understand that, but it's like, you're right. All these people are a little out of whack. They have huge egos. Everybody is at blame and potentially at fault. Do you have any predictions on where you see this going in terms of, like, I always think about, like, well, how much more hate can we do? How much more intense will it get before the pendulum swings the other way?
I mean, I don't think it'll ever stop, to be honest with you. I feel like we're just now in our era of, like, rage baiting, where, like, the people who get the most attention and most views are people who piss you off on purpose. And, when I was growing up, we used to say, like, ignore the trolls. But unfortunately, now everyone goes, actually, we need to call out the trolls, which is the worst thing you could possibly do, because you're just giving them what they want. And so I actually just think it's going to get worse. And that's probably not what you want to hear. But as long as we prioritize a 3-second engagement, which is like getting your attention within 3 seconds, that's the only way that they're going to do it. Because the only way to elicit a really quick emotional reaction from you is to piss you off. Because if I'm trying to make you sad, it's going to take a little bit to build up. If I'm trying to make you feel something like happy, it's going to take a little bit to build you up. If I'm trying to make you laugh, I have to get to the punchline. It's going to take a little bit, but I can get you mad with one word.
Dude, you nailed it. You nailed it. That's it. Exactly. I was on the old Twitter today, And I'm seeing all of this just hate after hate. And each time I had to stop myself from replying back, not hate towards me, but hate like about political stuff. And I was just wanting to like, just like let out like my worst inhibitions on like Twitter. And then I was like, no, don't do it. Don't do it. This is what it's supposed to be. They're trying to like get you in there for that engagement. And it's really scary because a lot of the time it works.
Oh yeah, it's the algorithm's fault, and we're all programmed by the algorithm, whether we like it or not. So, like I
Well,
said, 3 seconds.
you exist. Thank God you exist.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, before we get into some housewife stuff, which I can't wait to get your takes on, we just had breaking news yesterday about Ben and Jen Benifer. And did you? I mean, obviously, I think we all saw this coming. We didn't know when it was going to get announced, but it had been playing cat and mouse with who's wearing rings and selling the house. Did you see the divorce being announced by J-Lo this week?
Yeah, I had a video on it. I had two actually. One way before, and then one like a couple months ago. Whatever. Like I. Here's the thing. The whole J-Lo conversation, I think people of a certain age love J-Lo, and then the younger generation probably not so much because, you know, she's had a long career and it's hard to maintain that top tier level of relevancy for as long as you can, right? No shade to her. But I think at the end of the day, it's just boring to me. And I feel like most people are pretty bored. Like, I don't know if I necessarily believe that many people are super invested in their relationship. I feel like it's probably more so along the lines of, in my opinion, allegedly, a deal with like the magazines. I think like, you know, they have deals like, oh, you know, we talk about you. I think there's deals because I don't know anybody who really cares. And maybe that's like a weird opinion, but I really don't think people care about the two of them.
And by the way, it's already kind of sad if you look at it as like a real relationship, but then it's doubly sad for J-Lo, who I think likes to be out there and likes to get attention, where you realize that attention economy is slipping away and it's going to the younger pop stars like Sabrina Carpenter, Tate McRae, Taylor Swift, all of these people. I also wonder, and we see this with J-Lo a lot of the times, is that success and her place in the industry is very important to her. And I totally get that. But it's really sad sometimes to know that as you get older, you're not going to sometimes appeal to that young 18 to 34 advertising space.
I don't even think that's the issue. I think the issue with J-Lo is that we got exhausted from her relationship drama. I think Taylor Swift is someone who should be taking note of this. It's really fun. It's really fun. It's really entertaining. We're really invested. And then we get over it because then you start to become our friend who always has the same issue that we start to get annoyed by. So for me, I think her biggest problem is that her main way of promoting herself was her relationships. I think if she would have leaned more towards, you know, honing in on her acting talent and, you know, getting a bigger role that's like more in depth, I think people would be more invested.
Dude, you nailed it. You nailed it. I mean, this guy, that's you're dead on. And also she shoved that relationship in our face so much in this last couple of years that you're right. Then when it doesn't work out after you kind of try to get us on board, you're right. You comparing it to also that friend that we all have, that friend. I mean, that's exactly dead on. Okay. Housewives. I want to point out last time, I know you are a huge Teresa Real Housewives of New Jersey fan, correct? What do you love about Teresa?
Well, I love the fact that the last time I was on here, I got a wave of hate for saying that I like Teresa. That was funny.
Did you really? I'm sorry,
oh
dude.
God.
I didn't know.
No, it was really funny.
I didn't know.
It was hilarious to me. I just think that she has a lot of anti-fans, which is really entertaining to me because I'm like, wow. Like, I think it's always fascinating how people can elicit a reaction so strongly. For me, it's not that deep. I don't really care. The hate doesn't bother me. I think what I love about Teresa is I'm Italian. So a lot of the things that she talks about that doesn't make sense to people makes sense to me because it's a part of our culture growing up. Like, I'm born and raised Italian New Yorker. So like her Jersey, it's the same thing. And so I just find her extremely relatable. And I think that's really what I'm most drawn to her. I also find her to be pretty authentic, whether it's good or bad. I feel like her emotions kind of are written on her face, and that's very Taurus of her. But I really enjoy that. That's it.
The anti-fan comment is actually dead on as well, because with Teresa, like, you know how there's villains on Bravo and they're almost proudly villains. I would almost put Tamra Judge from the OC in that camp this season, like really leaning in, kind of knows what she's doing, even though she'll play dumb. Teresa's never been like, and don't hate me for this, you guys, because I've always said I like Teresa and I like Melissa. I get a little worried for Teresa in relationships. I get a lot worried,
Oh
and I
yeah.
don't love when any of the castmates go like online and try to like curry favor with content creators. That's a little weird, but Teresa's always provided insanely legendary moments. She's on, to me, the Mount Rushmore of Housewives, regardless of what you like or dislike about her. But the anti-fan is so interesting because I don't think she deserves that title. Like, it's weird. It's weird the passion that comes out in disliking Teresa, and to a way lesser degree disliking Melissa. But I don't sometimes understand the Teresa. Like, you can be completely worried about her relationship with Louie, which I personally am, but the Teresa of it all, if you take this season away, it just doesn't make tons of sense. Like, she's just not going to get along with Melissa. I've accepted it.
I could say
Right?
so much. I could say so much. I think it boils down to the fact that what she represents, which is a little bit more of a traditional kind of like, a lot of times it brings out this visceral like frustration in people because they feel like perhaps she didn't evolve or didn't grow or whatever. And it's like, it like reminds them, a lot of people in their life, that perhaps are a little bit stuck in their ways, or, you know, haven't really changed with the times. And I think a lot of times it's a projection. But the thing is that I feel like the most successful people get projected upon a lot. I think that's just a part of it. Like, you are familiar to them, you elicit a reaction. That's something you either have or you don't. And so I know a lot of people like hate on her, but that is seen as a massive positive to anybody in the entertainment space, because think about it. Who's successful that doesn't have a shit ton of hate? It doesn't exist.
Well, that's what I mean, I hate in this day and age, especially because we're so aware of the hate. Like, there's hate's always been here, but it's so in our face now. And it's just like this rolling snowball down a hill. But Teresa, I asked you about a couple people before we came on in regards to your opinion. And one of those was Louie and the relationship with Teresa. And I didn't know, you've probably done a video on this at
I
some
did.
point, but what were your thoughts on the Louie relationship? Because I'm not an intuitive, I'm not an empath, I don't think, but I seems like a really nice guy. I met him once. He was a really nice guy, but it seems like there's just this weird feeling I get when he's on screen, and especially in one of those last episodes, how he said he wishes Margaret's son suffered. There's a lot of inconsistencies from how he talks and then how he acts. What's your take on Louie, or what have you found out?
Oh, well, so a few things. First of all, the comment where he said about Marge's son, not okay. However, for me, it's very hard to have sympathy for Margaret, just for the simple fact of she literally told Jennifer Aiden that her kids are resilient and they can go to therapy because she outed the affair
With
with
the
Bill.
cheating with Bill. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, I was kind of just like, I kind of was like, okay, but like, you say just as horrible things. So it's very difficult for me to have sympathy for her. I do think it was wrong, and two wrongs don't make a right. But as a viewer, I was kind of like, well, I mean, Apple, you know what I mean? Like, it's like it's kind of like, okay. But also, I will also say, like, I don't watch Real Housewives for people to be nice to each other. So it's like,
I know, right?
like, it's like this line that you have to toe that I'm kind of like, oh, whatever. But yeah, I mean, it was wrong. But I can't really have sympathy for Margaret in that. I'm sorry. But Louie, I did a reading on them, on Teresa and Louie, and Melissa a long time ago. It's on my YouTube channel. And I actually just did a video on the future of Real Housewives of New Jersey, but it's for my YouTube members. So you have to pay $5 to see it, but you will get access to a ton of other videos.
Can I just ask, do you think it's going to continue? Can I just ask that?
It's complicated. I basically looked at each housewife this season and what their future will be. And I can see what they're trying to do. And I do think that they want to keep someone, or one or two, to be honest. But there are factors at play as to which one they choose and why. And so I go in depth with that. So if you are interested, it's a $5 a month on my YouTube members. There's a join button.
Oh, that's nothing. $5 a month.
Yeah, there's a ton of extra content that you get too. Okay. I do so many extra videos. But
guys, I'm going to join, and then I'm just going to tell you guys everything that he said. No, I'm joking. Go subscribe to that. I didn't even realize that was available, so I will subscribe to that.
Thank you.
So you went over all of that on the future of Jersey, but what in this past video with Louie and Teresa and potentially Melissa, what was the feeling that you got from that?
Well, Teresa and Melissa are just very similar. That's why they don't get along. It's very obvious. I think anybody who's been watching since the beginning have seen that. And Joey clearly went after someone that reminds him of his sister, right? That's literally because
Oh yeah.
it was on purpose. Like that's, or maybe subconsciously, but whatever. So for me, it's kind of boring to go over the Teresa and Melissa thing. They're just the same person in a
Yeah.
different
And by the way,
outfit.
you could even tell they're bored with it this season. Like
Oh
Melissa
yeah.
was like, I don't want to say, like, I mean, really, they almost seemed exhausted with it as well. And I'm like, I've accepted. It's not going to happen, you guys. I don't, they're fine. They're going to live their own lives. If something happens down the line, great. But it's not going to be, it doesn't need to be a storyline. It's Groundhog's Day, you know?
I will get to that in a second 'cause I have a lot to say. But and to answer your Louie question, I actually don't hate Louie. And I think Louie has a lot of childhood trauma. And I think he talked about his dad being an addict and stuff like that. And
Yep.
so I kind of understand where he's coming from. He is weird. And I know a lot of people have said he's weird. Even Joe Giudice said he's weird. But the thing is, weird people make entertaining TV. So it's like, again, you're kind of just like, here's my thing. I think him and Teresa together have a lot of positives, but I also think they have a lot of negatives. And so the issue that they're going to have to navigate is, are they going to continue to bring out the worst in each other, or are they going to focus on bringing out the best in each other? And I think the show is a stressor. I think his job is a stressor, quote unquote, his career that
Yeah.
we don't understand. I think that's a problem. And I think he's also like, to me, I see him again. I said this in my video. I feel like he's like a little boy wearing his father's clothing, trying to fit in. And so it's like embarrassing and cringe.
Well,
a little bit.
he does wear the grandpa's PJs.
Yeah. And that's what I
So
mean, like, which is weird because that came out after my video. But like my thing is just like, I think he's just kind of like trying to fit in. And the more you try to fit in, the more weird and cringe you are. So it's kind of just like, I think it's just one of those things where he just needs to just learn who he is and be himself. Cause I just think it's awkward. Like we can see through it. It's just like, what are you doing? And then when it comes to his career, like something's fishy there. And I know Teresa is like someone who like blindly trusts people. It's very Italian of her. I don't think she's going to have issues financially with him, to be honest with you, because he doesn't really seem to be the type of person that is smart enough to rope her in the way in which she has before. But I do think that he's in trouble with like his finances and the way he sort of operates with his business, because they don't make sense. So it's like,
I mean, even away from your gift as a Bravo fan, or a fan of these shows that watch from the beginning, we've fallen into this trap time and time again where we just ignore something that's weird, like with Tom Girardi or with Jen Shaw. We're like, forget about it. And then all the shit comes out, and you're like, I knew something was weird, but I just pushed it away because they all seemed like they were like everything was hunky dory. So the other thing, I have so many thoughts about what you just said is that in terms of like you were saying, Melissa and Teresa are very similar. But are we also potentially repeating a sexier pattern with Teresa in relationships in terms of the Joe Giudice and Louie? Louie is almost a more sophisticated, better looking Joe Giudice potentially, because there seems to be a little bit of mystery surrounding his businesses. And like you said, he's not going to hopefully or probably not take Teresa like Joe had taken Teresa, where she winds up in prison. But there does seem to be an element of, is this a type of person that she's attracted to?
Oh yeah, she's definitely has a type. You know what it is? I think for her, I think what she really likes about Louie is how family oriented he is. And I think everything else she just accepts because of that, because they do so much as a family together. And I think that's like really what she's drawn to. I think when it comes to the businesses and stuff, I think she's the type of person to just be optimistic about like, oh yeah, he'll figure it out. Like I think she's the type of person who thinks like, if I support him, he'll figure it out. Almost like I can change him. But I don't think she'd ever admit that. I also don't know if I necessarily believe, I know everyone says he's like allegedly like a scammer. I don't mean this as shade. I don't know if he's smart enough to do that. I think I think to me, he just reminds me of like the guy that pretends to have a job, but doesn't. So it's like, I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if it's really that calculated.
If it's that deep,
Yeah, I think people give him a little too much credit.
Well, that's the deal as a Bravo fan. You got to believe in deep conspiracies now, just like the
Yeah.
world. You got to believe that everything that it's like, and sometimes I feel like we create the conspiracy. Like
Oh
eventually we
yeah.
create the issue. And I don't mean it with this situation, but I've seen it happen with other things where it's like we dig and dig until we create the problem. And I think that is so weird about how we've become as a fan base because we're so online, you know? Okay, so that was interesting about Teresa and Louie. And then
Yeah.
in terms of and this doesn't even really with your gifts, but as a viewer, what did you feel about this season? Me personally, I didn't cover it just because it's such a toxic environment in terms of like the comments I would get or like,
Mhm.
there's always somebody that's going to hate what you say, but I felt it was really uneven. And I really truly didn't know, well, there's fun elements. And I think Margaret pulled some really good housewife moves, some really snarky moves with the flower arrangement and throwing Jackie under the bus. But I felt it was wildly uneven. And I felt there's this aspect and where it's now about what we can keep off the show instead of what we can hide from the show
Yes.
instead of what we can share on the show. And so I don't feel like we even got Teresa's true story because I felt like it was mired down in let's keep this off the show. What did you feel about this season?
So I don't think the season was as bad as everyone's saying, but I think I have a lot of opinions. Okay, first of all, they're all unpopular, so get ready. First of all, I think I think that the fans are the problem with the show. I don't think it's the Housewives. Okay. I think if we're really going to be honest about the Housewives performing, I think every single housewife performed excellent this season, except for Melissa. I think she's the only one that phoned it in. And I don't even hate her, but I was expecting her to do more. I feel like I got absolutely nothing from her this season, but I can tell you something that every other housewife did. I feel like they all brought their A game. There was drama left and right. Dolores versus Margaret, Margaret versus Teresa, Teresa versus everyone, Rachel Fuda versus Teresa, the craziness of Jackie, who in my opinion was the complete MVP of the season, which I'll get to in a second. Uh, Jen Fessler, like literally everyone brought something except for Melissa. And to me, I was very disappointed because I was super excited to see Melissa actually bring something to the table without Teresa, and she just could not do it. And I feel like it was right there in front of her face. All you had to do was pick a fight with Dolores. That is literally all you had to do. She obviously is pissed off at the fact that Dolores is like in between everything. All she had to do was pick a fight with her. And instead, she gave us nothing. And I was so frustrated because I'm like, I want to like you so bad, but you are so boring. Like it's so frustrating. Now, as I said, Jackie was the MVP. I have never liked Jackie on the show, but what she pulled this season was so fucking good. It reminded me of when Kenya and Nene pretended to be friends for a season and then went after Kim Zolciak. I don't give a fuck if it's not super authentic as long as it's entertaining. Because we both knew that Kenya and Nene were never really friends, but they gave us a season that we will forever remain as iconic. And I feel like that's quintessential Housewives. And Jackie was like, I'm going to make my paycheck this month and I'm going to do this. And like, genius. Like, that's what these girls should be doing. Stop. Like, go switch sides. Like, this isn't real life. Like, we know it's not real life. It's a reality TV show. So entertain us. Okay. Yes, it has to be somewhat authentic, but I'm okay with like bending the truth a little bit if I'm entertained. And the fact that they're like best friends now, love it. Like, genius. Okay. And so I think for me, I think the issue with this season was essentially the fact that the girls tried, but it felt like production had a storyline they wanted to push and refused to budge.
Yeah.
And it was just giving like, this is what we're going to do. And you can't sway one way or the other. But I think the girls brought it. That's why I'm like, when it comes down to firing, why? Like, I don't get like, just
well, it still got decent ratings. It got like double the ratings of Dubai. It got really good ratings. I think it's one of those things like, are these shows meant to last 14 plus seasons? Are these shows like, in terms of storylines? I love that you call Jackie the MVP because first off, she really does need that compliment. I think she's it's almost like a martyr MVP, man. Like she got her ass handed to her at that last episode by Margaret. She got it handed like in terms of Dolores with the text message. And, it was interesting. She did make that move to go over to Teresa, but at the same time, I mean, her walking out of Rail's restaurant with like a limp almost, like she was almost sick, like she got sucker punched. I just thought it was potentially not the way. Like she sacrificed. She did that for us, folks. But I felt like she walked
Exactly.
out of there just so broken.
Yeah, but the thing is like that's somebody has to, and no, the other girls are just sitting there not wanting to look bad, and I'm just like, okay, if you sign up for reality TV, you're gonna look bad no matter what. Like, just entertain.
Yeah,
And like
eventually.
again, the whole feud between Jennifer Aiden and Danielle. I have another unpopular opinion. Why are we crying about that? That's literally like everyone's like, oh, you need to pick a side. This one needs to be fired. This one needs to be fired. Bring them both back. What are you talking about? Like, why are we firing two people with a big beef? I don't care. Oh no, she threw glass and she said this about her daughter or whatever the hell the conversation was.
They had to
Good.
stop production after that. They had to stop production after the glass thing.
I mean, at the end of the day,
they were.
I get it. You know, violence is not the answer. Tell both of them to stop throwing things and no more violence, and keep them on. You know what I mean? Penalize
Well, stop
them.
the violence, but keep saying things like, "By the way, you look like shit." Like that was an iconic line. By the way, use your words as glass. Like cut with your words. Don't.
I'm
not
gonna
with
be
your
honest.
fists or glasses.
I was running around for like fucking days just spouting out what Jennifer Aiden said with like your husband's the boobs and you're the brawn or whatever the hell she said. I was just like, it was so funny to me.
As a man with man boobs, that really offended me. I was like, justice for moobs. Like, how dare I would have jumped across the table at Jen Aiden when I heard that.
I just think her delivery was really like funny to me. And it was also something I would never think of. Like, that was so random, kind of like stupid too. Cause I'm like, that's like, it's like a childhood insult.
Yes.
It's like, oh, poo-poo pants. Like, but it's like, I don't know.
Yes.
It was just so stupid. It was funny.
It's great to talk to you because I needed to be reminded that everybody watches these in very different ways. And sometimes I'm so like in the weeds in terms of like trying to break down moments, or like, especially with Vanderpump Rules, I was like going like looking at every scene with a magnifying glass. And sometimes it's just Dynasty. It's soap opera. It's like, say the thing that you want to put on a t-shirt eventually. I mean, Nene taught us well. I'm so happy you brought up that Atlanta season that I'd completely spaced out on. And those are the kind of moves that you remember then years later. And I think sometimes I forget that this isn't a gritty docu-series, like the real shit. Like, it is real, but it's elevated at the same time.
I think it's just fun. And I think people forgot how fun the show is when you don't take it that serious. I don't know these people. This isn't my sister, my mother, whatever. I don't give a fuck. So like for me, I'm just watching as an from an entertainer perspective of like, oh, who's going to like say something funny today, or who's going to get the other one. And then I click off and I don't think about it. That's why I said the fans ruin it, because this culture in Bravo that has been curated about the fans thinking they can fire people. I
could care less about the firing stuff anymore.
If you comment under my stuff like this person needs to be fired, I am never reading anything you say ever again, because I don't care. I don't give a fuck. I'm not a producer. And neither are you.
Like I've been very clear on that. It's like I'll let them make those decisions. And also, like I said with OC this season, I've been doing recaps, and I'm loving this season, and I'm also really loving disliking Tamra. And that's what it's. It's a little bit of rage baiting, but at the same time, I'm like, this lady is acting insane. And that's part of why I love these shows. I think sometimes it gets to a point, though, and I always bring up Rinna as an example on the last season of Beverly Hills that she was on, was that it didn't feel real. It felt like it was a caricature of herself. Like she was almost imitating Lisa Rinna from years before. And it didn't feel... I just felt like she wasn't connected. So I thought, I was like, oh man, this is too much. It feels like you're trying to show us what you think we want to see. But the second screen technology and the fans, as much as we're good, we do make things sometimes so much worse. We should never be involved in casting. And by the way, if you pay attention, they don't pay attention to these comments anyways. They never do what you like. I mean, only a handful of times, and that's usually when it's been racist tweets or something uncovered. That's the only time that they've really taken action. When you comment stuff like that, you just make them more powerful, and they keep them.
Yeah, I also don't like the comments that I've been seeing about people being like, just cancel Jersey and do a whole nother a show. And like people being like, this show needs to end. This show needs to end. You know how it ends? It ends by you not watching it anymore. Just close your eyes. Like, I don't understand this. I really don't understand that comment. It's such a stupid comment because I'm like, so you don't like something. So you want it to stop existing because other people still like it? That makes no sense to me. If I don't like something, I stop watching. I don't go, you need to destroy the show and never bring it back. What? Girl, bye.
It ends with us, Antphrodite. That's how it is. Like that,
Literally.
but I will say sometimes, you know what it is? It's not even the show so much, but like the way you keep talking, you remind me it's the fandom. Like sometimes I'm tired of that discourse, especially around Jersey. That's why I didn't really cover it episode to episode, because I just didn't want to get in the mix. Like there are people out there on both sides, and the fact that I'm like talking about it in sides is so ridiculous, have made whole careers out of bad mouthing the other side, have like picked apart their personal lives, like have doxed people. And I'm like, this should not be happening. Like, how is this now a cottage industry of just hating a show or hating a character on a show?
Yeah, well, I also think you have to keep in mind it's an election year and people's emotions are at an insane level during election years, and they always take it out on like something random. So it's always like some TV show or something, whatever. So that's why I'm always like on edge in an election year. I'm just like, ugh.
Will you get I mean, I didn't go super far back. Will you get political on your channel?
Sometimes it has to be something pretty significant. And I still try to remain as neutral as I can. So, but it permeates pop culture. And so I think that also affects fandoms, and this fandom in particular, I think during election years always gets amped up and more like sort of angry. So
everything permeates pop culture now. Like sometimes I wish everything didn't permeate pop culture, because the net is widening so far. It's like crime is pop culture, everything is pop culture. Really quickly before we get to Jax, I noticed you hung out with one of my favorite people. I mean, two of like Trisha Paytas and Holly Madison. What was that experience like? How did that even come about?
So when I first blew up on YouTube, I was doing videos on like a lot of influencers, and I had done one on Trisha and she had seen it. And so we became friendly, nothing like super deep. And then I saw her on her tour when she did her Heartbreak tour, when she was promoting her album at the time. And I had met her in person then. And again, we established a connection, nothing like super deep. And then this past year, Holly Madison actually was a super fan of my content, which I was like stunned because I love her. And I was just like, I literally didn't believe her at first that she watched me. And she's like, no, I really do. And I had made a video saying like, oh, like, you know, someone had asked me like, oh, do you want to be on the Trisha Paytas podcast? I was like, yeah, I'd love to. When they were doing Frenemies, she had pulled up my video on Frenemies, and they had watched my video on Frenemies, and like Ethan.
What did Ethan say?
He was horrible to me. I got death threats for 2 weeks, but it's fine. But she like defended.
By the way, I love how he says every time, he's like, yeah, I got a lot of hate for that. It's all good. People threatened to kill me. It's all good. Like, how is that all good? Like,
I'm used to it. Like, I've been doing this for 7 years. That's like a Monday. You get desensitized to it. But like she defended me and it was really sweet. So I was like, yeah, like I would love to be on this Just Trish podcast. And it's a dream of mine. And Holly had seen it, and Holly had messaged Trisha like, oh my God, like let this happen. Trisha was like, oh yeah, of course. Like I love Ant. Like we'll totally do it. And that's just how it happened. Like it was just kind of manifestation speaking into existence. And then, yeah, that's it. And it was amazing. It was like one of the most, I think it was like the top thing in my career so far. I've done a lot, but like for me, that was like, because I love Trisha and I love Holly, and it was just like so surreal to be able to give them readings and like just talk. And we were talking off camera for forever. Like it was, and Trisha's so down to earth. So it was just amazing.
God, Trisha Paytas is such an underground legend, and it's so interesting because I know she signed with like a big agency last year, and she was pregnant at the same time. But I'm so excited to see what opportunities she gets in terms of like, because I really would love to see her on The Traitors, or I would love to see her like, because I know she's so known and beloved, but like it'd be interesting to see like the other half of America find out who she is.
And she has no idea how big she is. Like, she's so I'll give you an anecdote here. When we went to do the photo shoot, she was on the side, Holly was on the side, and I ended up in the middle for this one part. And the photographer and Holly and I were like, "Why are you not in the middle?" And she's like, "Oh, I don't care." And we were like, "No, like you should be in the middle, like get in the middle." And we had to like make her get in the middle because that's how much she wanted other people to shine. And that's just like her personality. And I feel like it says so much about her and why I love her so much.
I love that. Would you ever do a reality show? Would you ever,
Oh
if
my
they ever came
God.
in, it's like, hey, can we do this with your ability? Or have you been invited on shows to like come in and do a reading? Has that happened yet for you?
That's my dream. I would love to. So if any production
Yeah.
companies
I
are
mean, I
out
feel like
there,
it's like a no
hit me up.
brainer.
I have had a few opportunities and some shows have been pitched, but I guess I'm a little bit of competition to some pre-existing people, so it didn't work out. But something will eventually. I'm definitely open to it, and it is my end goal is to be on TV. So
Yeah. I think to me, that's a no brainer. So that's exciting. Okay.
hi,
To move over
Bravo.
to, hi, Bravo. Yeah. Hey, Barbie. Hey, Bravo. Jax Taylor. Jax Taylor, I wanted you to think about as well. He obviously is allegedly going through a tough time coming out of a mental health facility this week. It might have been actually today. And season 2 of The Valley is starting. And now Brittany Cartwright, a thing in the news came out, said, I'm glad he went, but I don't want to have anything to do with him. What is your take on Jax Taylor? And you were an OG Vanderpumper, right?
I watched it a little bit. I'm not like super in depth, unfortunately, because as much as I enjoy, TV, I felt like I was a little bit, I don't know, bored. I just feel like when here's the thing. Okay, no shade, but I
Yeah.
found most of the storylines to be about someone sleeping with someone and then getting
Yeah.
jealous. And
That's
to
it.
me, it's like, how many times can I watch that? I don't know. So it's like my take on Jax is kind of just like he's a big kid, and it's very hard for me to take him serious.
Well, I mean, it's interesting that you're a big kid, though. So it's almost kind of saying like, but when you're a big kid and you never actually take responsibility for your own actions or become an adult, are you kind of saying you're bound to repeat the same behavior again and again and again?
He's like Peter Pan syndrome. He's like every guy I've ever dated. Like it's just like they like think it's all fun and games and everything is like funny and they don't take anything serious. And then, they get to their 40s and they're like, oops. Like that's just and to me, it's like I don't feel pity for a lot of people like that because it's like you've hurt so many people along the way that I'm kind of just like, well, that's what happens. Like you hit
Yeah.
the crash moment. Now you have to rebuild your life. So hopefully he can rebuild his life and, lead authentically. But I'm sure there's a lot of people in his wake that are kind of just like, screw you.
Yeah. I mean, when you do readings on people over the years, if you had somebody like Jax, how do you advise people like that? Like, how do you, if you're pulling cards and these are the things that you're getting the vibe or the feeling from the cards are saying, how do you then advise?
I mean, I'm very straightforward and blunt. That's my style. And I tell people straight up, don't ask me questions if you don't want the answer. So if someone like that came to me, I would be like, you need to grow up or you're going to lose everything you love. And I would be honest about that. And I think, it really just depends because a lot of times those people are just scared. It's fear that makes them run. And so for me, it's if I were to work with someone like that, it's more along the lines of like pinpointing your fear, where it's coming from, and how you can be comfortable with being afraid because everyone's afraid. And it's something that you just need to get used to. Like it's a
Yeah.
superpower when you turn that fear into passion. So it's like
Yeah.
transmuting that energy into something better. But I also think for him, it's hard when like you're rewarded for your bad behavior. Like
That's
every
it.
time he does something, he gets more famous, gets more money. Producers are like, woo, you threw a table, whatever the hell he does. You know what I mean? Like it's just, yeah. So
What's
it's
like all of
hard. It's
these
reinforced.
reality stars, it's just this isn't supposed to be a job that can, I keep saying it, it's like nobody's had this job for more than 50 years. It's not like a lawyer or a doctor or a banker. So it's like a wild west. And like, how do you grow old in reality TV when it's all about the chaos of your life? It's all like, even you mentioning Teresa saying like, hey, it's built on this chaos. And if you're not going to actually participate in the chaos because you're trying to protect your happiness and namaste, how do you continue on in reality television?
You transition to business because the reality show is the greatest promotional tool you could possibly have. And
Yeah.
so for me, when a housewife doesn't have a unique business, I'm kind of just like, why not? And it's
Yeah,
not
well, I
like,
mean,
oh, slap my name on this. It's like, come up with something unique, like something that is
yeah.
you, something that is related to you. Like everyone wants a lifestyle brand, everyone wants a candle, but what is you? Give us something that is your specific brand or that relates to what you've shown us, like, I don't know. I feel like, again, I'm not going to give free business advice to people I don't care about. But my thing is like, that's what you should do. And so for me, if I were Jax Taylor, right, he's a player, right? So for me, I would have leaned hardcore into some sort of menswear brand. Like, honestly, I feel like I would have loved to have bought a cologne from him because I just know he smells like douchebag. And sometimes you want to smell like douchebag. So like,
Well, they already have Axe body spray. They already have that. Yeah.
Yeah, but guess what? They have 6 different types of bottled water, and they're all the same thing. But we purchase different ones based on marketing.
You're dead on right. In fact, I remember one of the first seasons, he said to everybody that he was coming out with a chunky sweater line, and it never came to fruition. He was like, would talk about it, but he would never do it. It was like, oh yeah, that's coming. And I just think there's a part of him that's like eternally lazy on top of all of that. But you're right. Like I mean, even as a joke, I would have bought Jax Taylor cologne.
That's what I'm saying. And then he could have transitioned to like shaving cream and then razors and men's things. It would have been so easy. So it's like, for me, I just don't have sympathy for people like that. I'm like, bye, you have no creativity. Sorry, sucks to be you. Can't relate. Like, I don't know. Like, get out. Like, let somebody else get your position. Like, there's so many people that would kill to be in your position that would take their creativity to the next level. And you're sitting there with your thumb up your ass. Like, for me, it's kind of like, wah, wah.
I mean, you're right. You're right. As we start winding down here, are you watching this season of Orange County?
I've seen a little bit, but to be honest with you, Orange County just gets very repetitive towards me, and I don't feel super invested in the characters. So I'm kind of just like, eh.
I think they're having a really good season, and it's all based around like Shannon Bedore's chaos, and I can't believe they're fighting over Shannon's ex, John Jansen, which is insane. I think you would actually dig this season. Are you excited? Did you dip into Salt Lake City at all last season?
I did. I still don't agree with getting rid of Monica.
Me either. Horrible move. Horrible.
I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, I saw the trailer. This new season does look good, but stupid. Sorry.
That's what I was going to ask about this new season. If you watch the trailer, not in terms of your gifts, but in terms of being a fan of these shows, if you were excited at all, or if you're just overall angry about Monica. So you're like, screw that.
I think the trailer does look good. It doesn't look great, but that doesn't mean anything. But I still think that getting rid of Monica was a very bad decision that they will regret. And I wouldn't be shocked if she comes back the season after this one.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. Like you've just made her more powerful. The more you push against her. And for me, I've always said, as much as I thought Monica was a great character, that was only season 1. She didn't really do a great job at the reunion. And I always think these shows should be about conflict resolution, and everybody else gets those opportunities. I know we all consider this a bad thing in terms of reality Von Teese, but I'm sorry. All of these ladies have burner accounts. All of these ladies collect information. They all talk shit on one another. I'm still failing to see why this was a cut above all of the rest of the shit all of these ladies pull on each other. Like, they didn't present that case. They did a great job at making it super exciting to watch and like receipts, proof, timeline. I thought Monica had killed somebody. I thought I was so excited, and it still doesn't all make sense to me. And the fact that they just refuse, they just won't work with her. I'm like, there's no crying in baseball. You got to do this. This is Housewives.
I agree. And I also think every single housewife talks to bloggers and stuff like that. I don't care. I literally don't care.
What are blogs? Like, what are these fucking blogs? We're all online. Like, do blogs exist anymore? Like, what
I know. I
blogs
just
are we
don't
talking
care.
about?
I literally don't care. I like, as a viewer, when a storyline is about bloggers or like an Instagram account, I just tune it out because I'm like, don't care. Like, boring.
Yeah.
Give me something else. Do a twirl, like something else.
Yeah.
Throw something. I don't know. I just can't. A pirouette. Like, I'm just so bored. I'm like, goodbye. Get a different storyline, please.
Okay. What are you loving on television right now, or however you watch, and what are you listening to right now? What's it popped in your head this summer?
So this, I mean, I feel like I always listen to the same thing. I love Kim Petras, so that's like all I've been listening to in terms of music. But when it comes to and the new Katy Perry, was she just
So
commented on my
your Woman's World. You were a fan of the song.
love it.
Really?
I
It got
danced.
so much hate, that song.
Goodbye. I danced to Woman's World, and Katy Perry this weekend commented on my TikTok of me dancing to it. And I don't know how
What'd she
she
say?
found it. She literally put like a kiss and heart emoji, and that was like little kitty cat and me just like screaming. I don't know how she found it. I didn't tag her. It only had like 8,000 views. Like it was from like a month and a half ago when the song came out. I have no idea how she found it, but I was like, thank you. I also
And
think
by the way,
like,
Trisha Paytas in the music video for that.
I manifested that. I was like, two people I love together. Loved it. But and there's a song coming up on the album that is Kim Petras and Katy Perry. Again, people I love. I'm like, this whole thing is made for me. But yeah, I love that. I've been listening to that. In terms of what I've been watching, to be honest with you, I'm kind of pissed off that everything sucks right now. So I've been in my like nostalgic era where I'm rewatching Charmed.
Alyssa Milano, rest in peace, Shannon Doherty, rest in
Yes.
peace. What a queen. So
Alyssa
you're rewatching
Milano,
that from the beginning.
Yeah, Alyssa Milano is one of my favorite people growing up. Like I was obsessed with her. And I watched Charm when it was airing. And so I used to rewatch it every 6 months. It was like a ritual. And so I'm just I'm back in my ritual again.
Did you ever, I think you're too young for this. Did you ever do Who's the Boss with Alyssa Milano?
I actually did. I did actually. Yes. It would come on really late at night and I would watch it. Yeah. That's where I initially was obsessed.
Samantha. Hey, go away, Samantha. I loved that show when I was a kid. Oh my God. So you're rewatching Charmed from the beginning. That's and I love that you said you used to watch it every 6 months from the beginning. That's really okay. And then finally, what are the big stories coming up this week that you're going to be making videos on? And I guess the bigger question is, how do you determine the videos that you want to work on? Is it like algorithmic? Is it what piques your interest? How do you all do this?
So it's kind of a mix of everything. A lot of it is like input from my viewers. So people who message me or comment or reply or whatever on my socials or my videos, I do read the comments and I do videos on what I think is most popular. And then a little bit of what I want. Like for instance, I just uploaded a video today on unsolved mysteries. So I always do videos on the cases, like the true crime cases that they talk about.
Dude, that lady that was in the basement, did you do one on that they don't know how she got there?
Yep. That's exactly, yep. That one's already up. And so I love doing things like that, like true crime and stuff. And so I think that's going to be most of what this week will be is like true crime videos. And so
are you going to touch Scott Peterson?
I might. People actually were asking me for that literally today. And so,
yeah, because they did that 3-part Netflix series last week. And then there's a 3-part series on Peacock with Scott's jailhouse interview in it as well. So I would love your take on that.
Yeah, they were telling me like watch the Netflix thing. So I might have to do that this week.
Yeah. Well, I think you're a damn genius. I'm so thankful that you came back. I really appreciate it. I hope you had a good time. I want to remind people that I'm going to put all of his links in the show notes, but his YouTube channel is where you can actually you can watch all his videos, but if you want something extra like I do, you're going to subscribe for $5 a month. We're also going to follow him on Instagram. What else do we have coming up? Oh, Antphrodite.com. You can find out all of this stuff as well. Anything else that the audience needs to know about?
No, just enjoy, have fun, and try not to take life or pop culture that serious. That's all.
Oh, man. Well, you've just put a hole in my life. That's all I do. I'll talk to you next time.